What's up, folks? This is Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. A while back, I did some videos on the One Ring 2nd Edition by Free League Publishing. Specifically, I checked out the Strider mode, which had at the time just been released and allowed solo play in the system. Now, a couple of years later, you may be asking the question, how does the system hold up, and what's changed that would be of interest to a solo RPG enthusiast like myself? Well, we're going to get into that today, as we're going to spend a little time alone with the One Ring.
One ring to rule them all.
If you're enjoying the channel, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, as that will help focus that big algorithmic eye on my channel. If you don't want to take all of your gaming adventures on alone, check out the Books, Bricks, and Board Discord channel, link in the description. Last, if you think it's worth a little bit of your share of Smog's treasure, think about becoming a channel member. With subscriptions as low as $2 a month, it's a great way to show that you enjoy the channel. Now, with all that out of the way, on with the show. History of the One Ring. The One Ring RPG, initially released in 2011 by Cubicle 7 and designed by Francesco Nepatello and Marco Maggi, is in its 2nd edition, which released as of 2022 under the new and current publisher, Free League Publishing. The original edition was the first Lord of the Rings RPG released after the short-lived Decipher game, which was itself based strictly upon the Peter Jackson films rather than the direct works of Tolkien. Prior to the Decipher RPG, there was a very popular and long-lived, by industry standards, Middle-earth role-playing game produced by Iron Crown Enterprises and based upon its own Rolemaster system. While that game was well-loved and nicely supported, see some of my own collection here, it did little to separate itself mechanically from its predecessor, Rolemaster. While Tolkien had a much less flashy magic in his Middle-earth, MERP allowed for a fairly robust bit of magic in that system. Additionally, while the very deadly and crunchy mechanics of that game are a lot of fun, they don't really convey the same types of encounters we read in Tolkien's works. This is where the One Ring really set itself apart from its predecessors by making the mechanical elements strictly tied to the thematic feel of the fiction, and the gaming community noticed, racking up 7 Ennies, a Golden Geek, and a nomination for the Best RPG at Origins. And that is just for the 1st edition, mind you.
It gets even better!
The 2nd edition of the game has added a Gold Ennie for Best Interior Art to the already impressive list of accolades. Between the two versions, which I understand to be largely compatible with some tweaks, a large area of the Eastern lands were covered with the products released for the 1st edition, while Free League has done a nice job of covering the Western lands during its time as curator of the game. This, of course, would all be of little consequence if the game doesn't play well. So let's discuss that now. The mechanics. The One Ring 2nd edition is heavily reliant on a universal resolution mechanic which uses typically a single feat die and a number of success dice equal to the relevant skill, plus or minus success dice equal to the modifiers for the individual task. Those are all added up and compared to a target number. If the target number is met or beat, the roll is successful. If not, you failed. The feat die is a 12-sided die with the numbers 1 through 10, plus an Eye of Sauron and a symbol of Gandalf. The numbers are simple enough to adjudicate, you just add the number to the result. But the symbols act as the game's critical success/failure mechanic, but with more of a focus on the whims of fate as compared to most such systems in other RPGs. Normally, rolling Gandalf means auto success, and rolling Sauron is like rolling a 0 on that die, though conditions can cause Sauron to be an auto-fail as well.
Game over.
In the event of a situation granting advantage or disadvantage, the feat die is where it is realized, rolling 2 and keeping the best, or worse, respectively. The success dice are simple d6s with an elven T on the 6, as in addition to adding to the result, if you roll a 6, a T, you add a level of success to the task, which provides additional benefits from a menu of options, whether in or out of combat. Speaking of combat, I know this will lose some of you because it is neither your simple theater of the mind nor your tactical grid with minis. It is something that, to my knowledge, is unique to the One Ring in the TTRPG space, most closely resembling a JRPG video game strategically, but in a good way.
Which is, of course, ridiculous.
Everything revolves around stances being open, forward, defensive, and rearward, each providing special modifiers and stance-specific actions to choose from. This limits the number of backline heroes and allows players to gamble or play a little more defensively, while also giving narrative freedom to lore masters to describe the free-flowing and cinematic nature of combat rather than being beholden to the placement of minis on a grid.
That's a really good idea.
Another aspect of combat of interest is piercing blows. On feat die rolls of 10 or Gandalf, the attacker scores a piercing blow, which requires the receiver of that blow to roll a protection roll, based upon their armor, against the injury target number of the weapon, somewhere between 12 and 18 typically. If the protection roll is failed, the target is wounded, which kills most Mook level enemies, requiring a roll on this wound severity table for those that would have survived it. On the whole, combat plays out very gritty, but not brutal as it is in MERP. A nice middle ground. An area that I breezed past was the target numbers for skill rolls, which is another unique solution in the One Ring. Characters' target numbers are determined by subtracting their appropriate stat from 20 by default, and using that target number for all skills associated with that stat. For example, if your strength is a 3, you'd subtract that from 20, giving you a 17, and all rolls revolving around strength would need a 17 to be successful. Simple, elegant, and effective. Characters also have a parry number, which determines what an enemy needs to hit them, while enemies have a parry modifier, which is added to the strength target number of the character to determine the to-hit roll against said enemy. The whole process sounds more involved than it actually is, but at the table it just works very well. Characters also have endurance, which acts as hit points, and max encumbrance. As an aside, this game has a great encumbrance system, which will have you strongly weighing the protection of heavy armor against the mobility you need to be effective in combat. Brilliant. To reflect the struggle of good and evil and the burden of doing the right thing, the heroes have hope, which allows players to add success dice to rolls or activate abilities, which is countered by shadow points that, when equal to or greater than hope, will cause moments of madness, emotional scars, and a walk that runs closer to Sauron than one might like. That whole mechanic is well thought out and implemented and really captures the spirit of Tolkienian literature. The game has great journey rules resembling those found in many of the Mutant Year Zero games like Forbidden Lands, but much slimmed down and easier to adjudicate at the table, requiring assigning of tasks and procedure rules that determine if you have time for second breakfast on your trip.
What about breakfast?
I've already had it.
We've had one, yes. What about second breakfast?
Non-combat encounters aren't relegated to journeys either, as there is a robust social mechanic called councils, which give a reason for not neglecting your social skills during character creation. Speaking of, character creation is a real treat, with more focus on your culture than your class, called a calling in the One Ring. In the core game, you have Bardings, Dwarves of Durin's Folk, Elves of Lindon, Hobbits of the Shire, Men of Bree, and Rangers of the North. Each has several stat array choices, a cultural blessing, and a list of starting skills. Callings, One Ring's version of classes, provide favored skills, think advantage, a distinctive feature, and a shadow path, just how the Dark One affects you. After selecting culture and calling, you get to interact with the advancement system immediately, which is nice as it is pretty robust. One Ring has experience points that allow development of skills, but also adventuring points that allow you to add new virtues and rewards. Virtues are special abilities that are able to be used to grant advantages, while rewards are physical items that provide a constant benefit. Think Sam's rope, Frodo's mail coat, or Boromir's horn. These items are deeply tied to the character and as such part of their identity. Virtues and rewards are reflected numerically by wisdom and valor respectively. This wouldn't be a Lord of the Rings simulator without a way to reflect bands of individuals acting as one, and as such, the group will have a fellowship rating, used to restore used hope, and each hero will have a focus, the one whom they are beholden to in the group. The group also gets a patron, which gives a reason to leave the Shire, and a way to give screen time to the major story characters without them dominating your story. There's a lot more to say, but if by this point you don't know whether the gameplay is for you or not, it probably isn't. Strider mode. Free League is one of my favorite publishers, and a major factor of that is their dedication to providing solo RPG options. Strider Mode for the One Ring was one of their first efforts here, and it remains one of the best. Strider Mode gives additional character options, an additional combat stance, and some oracles to help you guide your story. But otherwise, it gets out of the way and allows you to play the One Ring without reinventing the wheel with lots of unnecessary rule changes. This, of course, should be expected, as they had the master of solo RPGs himself, Sean Tompkin, design it. Sean was also the author of Ironsworn, so his solo cred is strong. Often, with an add-on like this, we'd be happy to have it and not expect any additions, but Strider Mode has proven so popular, it has seen updated options in Realms of the Three Rings and their Moria book. In Realms of the Three Rings, it adds the ability to build elf lords, think Elrond, giving the player a more epic solo experience. No reason you couldn't use these for other epic ancestries as well. Moria gives rules for allies, allowing a solo player to manage a full party with minimal baggage. Both editions give life and quality to your solo One Ring experiences and keep it one of the best options for the aspiring RPG soloist. My solo kit. One of the most popular parts of my prior One Ring videos was the sharing of my solo kit. Because the Strider Mode is only available in PDF and not in print, I had to print a copy because I'm addicted to paper. Since I was already doing that, I went ahead and printed selected rules from the core rulebook and threw them into one binder, so I had everything that I needed to play the One Ring right there in my hands in one binder. I thought it would be of value to share how that binder has changed over the last 2 years with the evolution of the One Ring, specifically as it pertains to the Strider Mode. Well, for one thing, my new binder is much bigger. As the One Ring has grown, I still have the Strider Mode in here. I still have selected core rules, pretty much the same as I had before, but I've also added Circle of Noms Expanded Adversaries, Realms of the Three Rings, the Rivendell expansion, Character Life Paths, and Peoples of the Wilderlands. I put my Strider Mode book up front because that is where I spend most of my time when I'm playing the One Ring. That's what I have to reference the most. And after that, I do have a printout of the FAQ for the One Ring 2nd edition, as there are a few rules that have changed, and there are definitely some corrections in here as well. Then I have my selected rules from the core rulebook, and for those I printed Chapter 2, which is Action Resolution, which covers how to interact with the unified resolution mechanic that is key to running the One Ring. Then I have the adventuring phases. This covers combat, journeys, and councils. It has all of the different rules that you're going to need to run any of those at your table, and it's nice to be able to reference them quickly without having to flip through the whole book or even grab the book. You've got it right here with you, and it saves time. Fellowship Phases is Chapter 7, and that covers the rules for downtime between sessions and how you recover as a character in the One Ring. Then I have the adversaries from the core rulebook. There's not very many. It's a little bit light. There's enough to get you by. But when you add all of the adversaries from the expanded adversaries by Circle of Nom, which you can find online for free, then you have a much larger selection. This is a 52-page document, and it covers everything that you can imagine that you're going to need to fight in the One Ring. I really like this document. I'm really glad that he made this available. And I think, as I understand it, it covers a lot of the material that was not converted over from first edition, so it probably has a little bit of a nostalgia factor for many. Here is the Rivendell expansion that came with the GM screen. This also has rules for Elves of Rivendell, so you can have a little bit different type of elf. It has an additional patron as well, as you can work for Elrond. Then I have the Peoples of the Wilderlands. These are the races or cultures that did not come over from first edition. This is available as a PDF on DriveThruRPG. And the Character Life Paths. Same thing, available on DriveThruRPG. You get to roll for your background, what you did before you became an adventurer, and it gives you some interesting hindrances and advantages, and basically just fleshes out your character's backstory. At the end of my book, I have a complete copy of Realms of the Three Rings. You might wonder why I didn't buy a hardcover copy of this. Well, I wanted the PDF and to print the whole thing, because it's only like 140 pages, was extremely cheap. So I'd rather have it here with my One Ring binder than have the hardcover copy, because I don't use it all that often and I didn't need the hardcover. Then I have my stance cards, and I added the skirmish stance from Strider mode to the back so that I have what I need there. I have 2 of them because I do play some co-op. I have a combat shield. I'm not sure who made this. I found this online. If you know who made this, please share in the comments section. I want them to get credit. I've got my Lore Master screen. And then lastly, I've got my awesome map of Moria that came with the hardcover of the Moria book. And it has this cool combat chart as well. And that, my friends, is my updated solo kit for the One Ring. Now, the good and the bad. First, the good. Number 1, true Tolkien. Everything about the feel of this game just bleeds Tolkien. The lore, the lands, the mechanics, everything feels like it was made from the ground up to evoke that feel from the books. There's a good reason for that. It was. Number 2, dedicated solo system. The Strider mode is an excellent addition to the game, and it gives it a lot of legs. It can also be used for co-op play, which is what I'm going to be doing with Mike the Hammer very soon. With Strider mode, you turn a game that would otherwise be relegated to those that have a full group of Tolkien fanatics into a game that you can enjoy by yourself or with a small group and no lore master. Number 3, innovative combat. The combat system in the One Ring is unlike anything I've seen in any other RPG. The use of stances and the way that the spatial element of combat plays out, more like a board game almost than an RPG, but in a good way. It really does provide an opportunity to tell stories in the combat phase of the game that match what you would imagine the combat from the Lord of the Rings to look like, rather than just trading blows back and forth. Now the bad. Number 1, hard sell. This is not like a game that most gamers have played before. And if they are very stuck on the specific types of games that they've been playing, this is not going to be for them. For folks that are addicted to 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, Free League has actually converted their One Ring material to that system. I have not looked at it, but I find it hard to believe that it would do as good a job of translating to a 5th edition mechanic, because everything was just built from the ground up to portray this specific setting. Also, characters in the One Ring aren't going to be slinging spells or finding huge hordes of magical items. That's just not what this is. So there are going to be many gamers that are put off immediately by what the One Ring has to offer. It's not going to be for everybody. Number 2, limited scope. Even as a simulator of the Tolkien world of Middle-earth, it is still very limited in scope, as it is meant to be played between the events of The Hobbit and the Fellowship of the Ring. You don't have a lot of extra room to work within the framework that they give you. Given you could change things and make up things on your own that would allow this to be the case, but working with what they give you, it's all set in a very specific time frame and a pretty specific area of the world. If that's going to be a downer for you, you should know that up front. Number 3, this is not a handholder. There's limited examples of treasure and monsters. There's lots of room left for enterprising lore masters to fill in the blanks. Some folks are going to be okay with that. Others are going to feel like they don't have a complete game. Neither one of them is wrong. The intent of the game was to leave room for players to be able to fill in the gaps themselves. If you feel like you have to have all of that completed up front, this game is probably not going to be well suited to you and your group. Summary. The One Ring is one of the few RPGs so nice I'll review it twice. Seriously, how many of us didn't grow up enjoying Tolkien's works in one form or another? Jackson's movies probably did more for nerd culture than anything since Gygax and Arneson released Dungeons & Dragons, which itself was also heavily influenced by Tolkien. It is only right, then, that when a top-tier publisher takes a great system that does Tolkien better than any other, we should be taking notice. Throw in a great solo mode, and you have me.
You had me at hello.
There's a reason this is going to be the focus of my upcoming co-op campaign. It is just that darn good. Books, Bricks, and Boards, seal of approval. Look at these absolute legends. Keith, Simone, Dengar the Mighty, Joke, Blue Rose Lion, Mike the Hammer, and Chris Dre. Special thanks to Pralinor, Steve Grudzicki, I Am Not Tim, and Acine Dean, coming soon. In the coming weeks, I will likely be covering Black Powder and Brimstone, Game of Thrones RPG, Merp and Rollmaster, Fantasy Express, and much more. But that's all up in the air, as I want to know what you want to see. More reviews, more solo content, more homebrew, more Savage Worlds? Tell me about it in the comments, and until next time, this has been Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. Good gaming, and God bless.